National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, presents a Bravo video event, the Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.
And on today's show, Section 79 plans with special guest Ken Davis, CPA.
And now the host of the Business Insurance Zone, the whiz of the biz, insurance columnist Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. We're broadcasting live to a nationwide audience of financial professionals right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And with me today, day 4 of Section 79. It's not becoming mind-numbing, it's really building on it. Day 4, if you missed any of these shows on Section 79, go back out to our site, www.brokersalliance.com. And when you get out there, click on the on-demand red button and go and watch the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday show before you watch this show, so you can kind of get I mean, we've been educating, we've been kind of doing a video tutorial. So with that, I want to introduce to you my good friend of 20, God, Ken, I think I've known you for like, what, 25 years?
Since 1990.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you know, we're older than our producer. And I have to say, Ken's been with us, Ken Davis, not only CPA, but CLU, ChFC, CFP, and CPA, of course. And Ken, we've been talking about Section 79 all this weekend. At the end of yesterday's show, I gave Ken a cardial arrest because I likened 5-year point-to-point, because as you know, there's no crediting in an indexed UL on a 5-year point till the end of the 5-year period, which seemingly, in my little metaphor, looked suspiciously like springing forward cash values, which it is not. And this is legit. But I said it, Ken had a small murmur in his
Bring in the stretcher.
Bring in the stretcher. Well, Ken, maybe you'll want to explain it.
All right, well, let's talk about why that's an issue from a tax perspective in the first place. One of the carriers has developed a 5-year point-to-point indexing strategy. Now, it's really kind of cool because the participation rate on that is 115%. The cap is unlimited. Okay?
Unbelievable.
So this is pretty serious. And the thing is, a 5-year period, there's not a whole lot of risk to the people writing the options. So it's a very legitimate kind of thing. But what works in the Section 79 is the tax formula for deduction is based on, as we're paying our premiums in over 5 years, and 5 years only in these programs, they compute the change in the cash values. Well, if you've got a 5-year point-to-point, there's no crediting for 5 years. Okay, legitimately, there is no crediting for 5 years, and so the result is that you get a higher tax deduction. So it acts in many ways like the springing value is. What's different about this springing value, the only people that use that particular product was those that were playing the games with the springing value. None of the normal people in the street would look at it and say, gee, I want low cash values in the first few years. And then, of course, they came out with a new formula, PERC, P-E-R-C, and it looked at reserves and other things, not just cash values, and they pretty much put the whole springing value thing to rest. Well, in this particular case, this is legitimate. I mean, people are willing to give up early cash crediting because they have unlimited caps, 115% participation. The numbers really look stellar. And the fact is that people other than Section 79 owners are using these products on a regular basis. So it's not this facade that people are playing the game just by. Everybody buys this, so that's what makes it legitimate.
And would you say that if there's a tax issue here that I want to make sure we're all clear on, that if I'm not crediting for 5 years on a 5-year point-to-point on an index UL, I actually get a little higher deduction
and there's 5 years, yeah.
Because
part of the formula of deduction takes into effect not only the deduction up front, but they back off some of the accumulation value year to year.
Accumulation value. Okay, so since there isn't any until the end of the 5 years, you get a higher deduction.
Right.
Well, I think this is a tactic that we're going to see more and more, and the players that are into Section 79, I think they're going to start adopting this. Now remember, there are only, to my knowledge, 5 indexed ULs that use 5-year point-to-point, but only 2 of those really play in Section 79. So it's a big heads up. There's 5 players, but not that many play buttons. Very limited. So when you call us, you're going to say, Steve, who are those carriers? Just call us, 1-800-290-7226, extension 147, or you can write me at thebiz@brokersalliance.com.
Well, and
we'll let you know who that is.
Let's talk about this, because the two different primary carriers that are into this in a big way, those that are willing to do simplified issue for 9 or less,
Right.
are basically 2 major carriers. Okay,
right.
One of them does the 5-year indexing strategy, and that's pretty exciting from a tax perspective. But we always talk about the pluses and minuses on the show. The minus is, what if you went for a couple of years like you did with the .com thing in the early 2000s, and you had goose eggs or zeros for the first 3 years? The numbers don't look real good, and you're not off to a very good start with your client. So the agent, in dealing with the client, is taking a risk with that type of a product, okay? Now, the other one that we work with doesn't do the 5-year point-to-point, but they have a fixed interest rate for 5 years, and a traditional type of UL, and then it converts. It's still an index product. It just goes to the indexed accounts at the end of the 5 years.
After the end of 5, yeah.
Now, one of the things they're saying is, hey guys, ours is more conservative. We're not doing this thing that maybe somebody would try to attack and say it is a springing value. We don't even want to go there, even look like or whatever, even though it looks legitimate, and in my mind is legitimate. But the fact is that if you want to be even more conservative, you do the fixed interest crediting. You build up some extra profit and cash that makes the policy look good. What's cool about that particular product is the 5-year indexing product has a 10-year surrender charge, early withdrawal penalties. This one only has 5 years.
Well, that's short.
Yeah, and part of the thing is they're deducting a lot of those costs up front, which helps with the tax deduction and makes the 79 look better. So it's a different strategy. 2 different companies, 2 different strategies. And as I'm consulting with our agents and working with people, we'll talk about the pluses and minuses of both of those, and they can choose which direction they want to go.
Well, now we've really honed this down from permanent life insurance to indexed universal life to 2 carriers that are really actually playing in Section 79 that use indexed universal life.
That is correct.
I mean, that's really gotten a small number. So we've really tried to learn not only the product line, which we already knew anyways.
Sure.
We were trying to learn the TPA issues,
Yep.
how we're going to interact with the TPA, and how we do simplified underwriting, because this is really a big deal for companies, C Corps with 9 employees or less.
Yep.
And I think it's the place to go out to and hit that first, because I love the idea of, simplifying an issue. I might be able to get this done in 30 days. I mean, except for the TPA issues, that they take time, but I kind of like this all-inclusive. I like turnkey marketing.
Sure.
And I think some of our producers like it too. And here we are talking about a little hybrid, a little higher-end advanced sales idea. However, I like the idea, and this is why Ken's on our show. And remember, whether it's our shows you've seen in the past with Ken on, if you have any questions, you can call him toll-free. Sometimes he gets involved in the case. It depends upon the need. If it's just a simple question, he just answers it. But a lot of times we say, you need to have him come in and intervene. I don't even want you, actually, if we could convince you not to flounder by trying it yourself, but do 2 or 3 cases, not only to see Ken's expertise, but how he gets in front of the people who matter. That's the real goal here. And when we're
let's just say this. I mean, the phone call doesn't cost them anything. We sit there, we discuss it, see what makes sense. If they're comfortable with me, want to proceed, want to share, that's great. If they just want the materials and want to send it to them, by all means, we're happy to do that. Let them take it themselves if they feel like they want to do it. So they don't have any requirement to do anything, but be glad to have at least a few-minute discussion, see if we can help them out. And if they want me to talk to the attorneys or accountants on the phone, have conferences or whatever, I can do that. And I can answer those questions. And largely, my whole marketing in my own retail business was selling through and to CPAs. That's what I did for 17 years. And so I know how they think. I've been on the other side of the desk, and that's how I know I can help. And specifically with business stuff, they're going to be there. When you're talking $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 premiums, the advisor is going to be at the table.
I like to have you as an adjunct with Brokers Alliance, because really what we've done is we've really entered the fiduciary market via your own credentials and your long-standing, really your long-standing practice as as an educator with the Arizona CPA Society. And I think you're going to see more. Ken's starting to get. I've tried to talk him into this for years. Now he's going to do it. He's going to start doing some tweets, blogs, and articles out there on the internet, because he has an easygoing style of explaining it. And that's the thing I think about producers. I want somebody in here that is going to use good language, solid, easy to understand, so I can say, hey, I'm interested or I'm not. And if I'm interested, again, 1-800-290-7226, extension 147. And the reason you can call is for our census. We have examples of these cases. We have examples of the retirement scenarios. We have some examples that show employees just taking the 50,000 term, some taking, I'll take more than that. I'll do a little bit per. We have different examples, and using these two carriers, again, Ken's kind of done the yin and the yang, the 5-year point-to-point on IUL, or the 5-year guaranteed that ultimately will let you go into indexing after that first 60 months.
Well, and in fact, just to refine it just a bit, 4 years and a day, you can shift over from the fixed to the 1 year point to point, because by the time the end of that 5th year is done, the crediting is a year and a day later. So you could even start doing that as early as that point in time.
I think if you had, especially on that platform, if you thought the market is ready to kick into gear, and remember, we've already seen a lot of the language in the newspapers, the Wall Street Journal, CNN Money, some of these guys have already started talking about this, that they see 2012 kind of recovering, even the housing, some of the market.
Well, so, I can tell you that there's actually been articles in our own local CPAs journal and national journals for the CPAs. There is now starting to build some awareness on this thing. And the fact of the matter is, my experience so far is the CPAs like this 79 if it's presented properly. And
that's what our job is with the help of our product line and Ked's fiduciary relationship, being a CPA and a CFP, and of course CLU, ChFC. He understands all the issues, not only on the tax issues of 79, but also the product issues, because he's been around me forever. I mean, we've been in the same study group for like forever. And the big thing I want to point out is, we're talking about C Corps, we're talking about companies that are 9 below. Now you can go 10 and above.
Yes.
And you got to get into the non-discriminatory issues then, once you cross that 10th employee, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, it's a different situation where now you're doing full underwriting at that point in time. And there are still rules to take care of. What happens though is there's a few more carriers that are now available, because the ones that won't do it for 9 or less can now be players in the other ones. But there are nuances from company to company and contract to contract that make the deduction more valuable in some cases. But that's what we're here for. That's what Brokers Alliance is good at, is knowing the details and nuances of various products, knowing what to bring to the table. And now we're marrying the tax knowledge and the product knowledge to come up with the best solutions.
So I'm expanding my IUL, Index Universal Life universe. If I have an employees of 10 or greater, now I'm going to have to go through for underwriting, not simplified any longer.
Right.
I guess if I had a young corp, maybe I'm okay with that, since everybody under 50, a lot of these kids are going to be really good shape, decent shape, I should say. They'll be,
sure.
And the odds are high that the employee base may be able to be pretty well underwritten on that.
And the cost of insurance will be lower because it will be fully underwritten. The ones that simplified issue is going to be issued standard.
Well, you're listening to Ken and I in the Business Insurance Zone. You can write me at biz@brokersalliance.com or call us toll free 1-800-290-7226. Ken and I will be right back after we compose ourselves, after we hear from our sponsor, Brokers Alliance, a leading authority on insurance products.
Whether you're a professional planner pursuing a strategic partner or an insurance distributor seeking a national alliance, your business just went into overdrive. Now enter the largest resource of insurance products and services with unparalleled access to a worldwide audience of consumers through the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, who can take your company and launch it into the stratosphere of success. With countermeasures, the most comprehensive carrier intel in the industry, the MASH unit with field triage underwriting and the premium tolerance test, the life insurance financial evaluation, the most rigorous policy review, and Bravo high definition broadcasting with online social media. Your search just ended.
Well, welcome back everyone to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant, insurance columnist, financial color commentator, and in my own eyes, interviewer extraordinaire. Remember, before moving forward with anything on Section 79 plans, always consult your CPA, your tax attorney, and if you're FINRA licensed, your broker-dealer compliance department. You can call us for quotes on Section 79, 1-800-290-7226, or any of our quotes. That's extension 147 for life insurance, DI, LTC, group pension plans, and annuities. And you know, it's not what I know, it's who I know, and that's why I have Ken Davis on my show, CPA extraordinaire and ChFC, CLU, and CFP. Ken, you know, when we're talking about Section 79, we were at the end, we were talking about groups that are 10 and higher. Now I want to talk to you about, again, TPA. Now, when I think of TPA costs, I think I'm so ERISA driven.
Sure.
So I think, here's the 55 easy for whatever. I got to do the 5500, right? I got to do that form. I got to do the fees for the filing, the record keeping, and everything else. In this, really, the TPA is born by a split scenario with the producer.
Right.
And you know, they ask for, I mean, is that average? They're asking for 20% of the target. Is that high? Is that low? Is that down the middle?
Well, it is. That is what it is. The two that I've found that I trust that have a good reputation are both doing it the same way as 20%. Mm-hmm. One of them then does ask for $500 the first year for setup and another $250 per year. When you're talking $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 premiums,
nobody cares.
The numbers are inconsequential, so it's not a big deal. And administration here isn't like qualified plans. You don't have 5500s and all these filings in the Department of Labor and all these crazy kinds of things. It's a much simpler environment that they work in, and it's pretty much looking at the census data, determining whether or not they qualify, making sure there's a C Corp involved and how it's involved, and then computing, you know, based on that census data, who's eligible, and based on the contribution formula and the amount of insurance that's put in place primarily for the owner, what is forced to be made available to the other eligible employees. And what's cool about this thing is qualified plan administration goes how long, Steve? Forever. Okay, as long as the plan's in place, every single year you're paying the administrator ongoing fees. We've talked about this in the earlier shows. 5 years. 5 years of contribution. And that's why the TPAs can get paid a percentage of the commission up front and really not have to charge anything significant after that, because it's relatively simple and it's for a 5-year commitment, and then they're done. And then everybody walks with their policies. These are individual policies, even though they're under a group plan.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I think that's another thing that we can think of. All right, I'm going from corporate employee to, I'm now transferring this to my own individual ownership, and there are no transfer for value rules. There's no taxable event.
The fact of the matter is, it is issued in the name of the employee to start with. They own it from day one. There is no transfer. And under transfer value rules, there wouldn't be a problem anyway, because they're ending up being the owner. But the fact of the matter is, these are individual policies. Now, we haven't really pushed on this before, but I think one of the huge issues here is the liquidity. We don't have to wait to 59 and a half to get the money. The individual employee owns it. They can change the beneficiary. They have access to the cash values. They're the owner of it.
Less the surrender charges.
Less surrender charges, and in one case, the surrender charges goes away after 5 years. So this is really a neat benefit. I can tell you, employees value something where they're getting annual statements coming to their homes much better than something where it's trusteed by their employer, and sometimes it seems a little foreign, a little far away.
Well, give me an example of, okay, we've serviced 60 months, 5 years is done, and I'm willing to now walk from this plan or walk from my employment. What's the unwinding? How do I take it from the employer to my, I know you say it's mine.
It is, in all respects.
So I just walk and that's it?
Yeah, there's no unwinding. The only thing that 79 does is determine that the employer essentially gets 100% deduction for the premium paid to themselves and anybody that chooses to be involved. And as we've talked about before, the vast majority of them choose not to be involved because they don't want to pay taxes on that upfront contribution. And then the employee gets a W-2 that shows the taxable portion, and there are safe harbor rules the IRS has promulgated that you go to that tells you what the economic value of that policy is and what has to be included in the W-2. Typically it's 60 to 70%.
And that was going on all the time during the first 5 years of the
That's
contract.
right.
So now in the 5th year, if I want to take this out, I'm not going to be paying. It's mine, and I'm not paying any more tax or economic value, or there's nothing.
You're done.
I'm done.
It's done. So 100. Let's take 100 grand.
Now, are you saying that could I be making contributions from year 6 through 10 to whatever as far out as I want?
Well, you can, and frequently clients like this so much that they want to continue on. But because of the tax calculations, we're through with that contract. We're done. 5-year payment. We're done. We got our tax deductions.
So it's really that's why you're really overfunding this thing. You got to be out of this thing
in 5 years.
Yeah, okay.
So you get very high cash value buildup. Then what happens is say, well, gee, I like this, and it's going away. What do I do now? Well, hopefully you're still in decent health. A table B or better, and you go back and set up a brand new policy, assuming the tax laws are still the same and the environment is still conducive to doing this.
So as an individual, I can't add year 6 and say I like this. I'm going to put some more. We're done.
Oh, you can, but you're not going to get the tax bang for buck that you got in the first 5 years. So you start a new one and start the whole tax thing all over again.
And that's okay.
It's okay. And as we talked about before, this can be stacked on and layered onto qualified plans in addition to. And there is no connection between the code sections. There is no exclusions or formulas or anything else. They're an entirely different section. 79 is not a retirement qualified plan section. It is a life insurance section.
I know. I can't believe they actually made a section for us. Usually it's, they're trying to X us out and tax 101 cash buildup and everything else. When I get back to ERISA though for a second, I like your laddering approach too, because Ken's an expert. We have to do a whole show on annuity laddering, combination annuities, because there's some terrific tax advantage just the way Ken actually sets this up. But I'm really thinking about, here we are in another area, taking ERISA, right? Taking Section 79, and maybe even, and I don't want to really make this like a Sunday, I'm going to the Dairy Queen, right? But maybe 162 bonus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can layer on different areas of the code to support. Like, for example, there might be a lot of people, hey, I'm well within the 401k plan. My employer's matching, I'm paying into that, at least up to my match.
Well, one of the situations, I mentioned this client before, we got in there 85 employees, sells equipment, and the key employees were unhappy, the owner was unhappy. We went in and showed the 79, the owner loved it, and we started talking about the key employees. One of their key employees wanted to put 40 grand a year away into a program with his own money, not the employer, but the employee. So I came back with something that's a 401k lookalike, and you're starting to see some of these types of structures out there. So there's a chance to cross-sell. You can do, maybe you are the advisor on the 401k, I don't know, the K plan. Now you can do the 79. And then you go back and cover the key employees with Section 162 bonus, 401k lookalikes, all kinds of different things. So you can layer. And back to your point about several different layerings, well, what I like about that as a tax advisor is the tax law changes constantly. Today we got a great program. 10 years from now, the world has changed. So the question is, I'm in retirement, want to be in retirement, where do I draw my money? Is it the K plan? Is it an IRA? Is it the 79 plan? Is it my own stocks and bonds? Is it my CD at the bank? Where am I going to get the money to live on? And I remember you teaching me timeline things of what if we could defer our qualified K plan past 70 and a half,
get it out.
Right? So then we use the life insurance policy to live on tax-free. Well, tax deferral is the name of the game in qualified plans. The longer you can defer the taxation, the better it works for you. So having choices and layerings from a tax perspective is a good thing.
Well, I like the idea of having flexibility, and I love the idea of companies 9 and down. I have my simplified issue, but there's really only a couple players, IUL players, index carriers. But then when I get past 10, it's full underwriting, so a lot of people come in line again. Now, even though they can come online with full underwriting, are these carriers awake to Section 79?
Well, the two primary ones are, and yes, the other ones are too. But again, there are some nuances. One of the carriers that does the guaranteed interest rates year to year has designed the expense loads and stuff so that they can have a 5-year penalty waiver. So that they're going to have to take care of those costs. They're not going to be stuck after the 5th year. So, but the cool thing is you get your deductions. As part of the formula actually enhances the deduction, so it's okay. You get a better deduction up front, and you now have a policy you can cash out after 5 years. Probably don't want to, but then those costs have been amortized, and now the thing can really start to accelerate.
I'm trying to think about a lot of the things we've been talking about this week. I want to get into Section 79 as a producer. I've listened to what you've said. I know my target market. I know the players, and you'll have to call us on that one, okay? Because they actually didn't pay for commercial time, so I'm not going to give them any airtime. Maybe later, we'll put them in. But I'm trying to see my next step. And I love that one thing you said about census, because if you've been in the business as long as we have, you've done a 412I. You did census for that. You did a census for other items, right? You've already done, maybe it was a DI census in your life. This census is pretty straightforward. We're not talking about collecting a lot of information, just basic information, male, date of birth, right? How much they earn, correct? And then those who are qualifying, their ages. And of course, we're looking at the management and the employees to try to see the mix there. And when we send that in, what has been remarkable to me, what's been the turnaround time on the census?
Well, generally a day or two. The TPAs will pump it out pretty quickly. Sometimes they get a little backed up, might take a few days. During busy season, typically towards the end of the year, might take longer. But they're very responsive, and they do it for free. They don't charge anything for these things. And back to what we talked about, one of the earlier...
Okay, let's just stop for a second, just make sure I got that. So just to take a look and explore, no TPA, the guys
no charge.
All no charge. I love that. Yep. So we can explore. When tomorrow we come back on this, we're going to explore the last parts of Section 79 so that you're fully armed to see if you want to dip your toe into this world or not. Well, you can watch this show and all our shows in beautiful HD 1080p right on our home site, where you can click on the red button on GOP right in our on-demand section at www.brokersalliance.com, and of course on all our social networks like Vimeo, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. I'm Steve Savant. You've been listening to the Business Insurance Zone. That's the buzz on the biz for today. Get into the zone, the Business Insurance Zone.
This has been a Bravo video event of the National Insurance Clearinghouse, the marketing arm of Brokers Alliance, one of the largest distributors of insurance products and services, to a nationwide network of insurance professionals. Need insurance guidance? Call Brokers Alliance. The Business Insurance Zone, dedicated to financial professionals who use insurance in their practice.